Hello, everybody, and welcome to the AI ethics unit. First off, this is going to be a less technical topic, so I hope everyone walks away with some new insights. And then, yeah, let's get into it. First, we have the important terms, and the main one, AI. So, artificial intelligence is the capability of a computer system to mimic human cognitive functions, such as learning and problem solving. We got this definition from Microsoft, and then let's get into it. What is AI? Narrow AI is AI created and used for some singular purpose or domain, such as coding AIs and those frameworks that exist. And it's the opposite of artificial general intelligence, which is AGI. And then Gen AI is AI that remixes existing images and texts to generate novel information, such as ChatGPT. So, what is AI at its core, right? So our key takeaway is AI is a human orchestration of equations and functions, like a series of steps, which is like an algorithm that takes in a bunch of data, the training data sets, and tries to create some sort of functionality, the output. And so the reality is this AI is not impervious to bias. Like it is designed by humans on real life data. And so this bias in the real world is reflected and further amplified in AI. And we can see that here. This is an image that depicts what AI stereotyped a whole lot of inputs as and resulted with these outputs of these images that show the bias that exists in AI as of right now. So moving on, we have the types and sources of bias. First, hidden data bias, then we have the differing amounts of data, quantifiability of features, feedback loop, and malicious data dockering. So an example of hidden data bias would be like in a facial recognition system where the algorithm struggles to accurately identify people of darker skin tones due to an overrepresentation of lighter skinned individuals in that training data set. And then with differing amounts of data, we can say like with voice recognition software, which shows lower accuracy for users with strong regional accents, since most of the training data consists of standard accent speakers, right? And then for quantifiability of features, is like an AI credit scoring system is less effective at assessing creditworthiness for people with unconventional financial histories, since traditional finance behaviors are more easily quantified and thus overrepresented in the data. Feedback loop is where like an online job platform continuously refines its algorithms, like say based on user interactions, leading to a loop where popular job types become more prominent and overshadowing less common but relevant opportunities, right? And then malicious data dockering example would be where a competitor initially submits false product reviews to an AI-driven recommendation system, skewing the algorithm to favor their product over others on Amazon or other websites. And yeah, now, what are the stakes like of all of this that's happening in the world? What are the stakes of AI? So AI is being used a lot more now to allocate resources and represent the world, such as automated loan systems, predictive policing, employment algorithms, and fraud detection. So like what's at stake here, right? It's our safety, well-being, and representation. It's us as humans that's at stake of this technology that's been um driven ahead. So moving on to the first topic, we have IP and copyright. So as of right now, we can see where's Gen AI being used, right? It's being used a lot, especially in the creator economy with art and design, video game development, content generation, and marketing. And then a lot of people also use it for code and in the tech industry, right? And this thing is called the AI creator economy. And it opens doors for a lot of new innovation and creativity. And it while it differs from true human creativity, it is able to mimic behaviors and trends that it's been trained on and like can potentially output content that is similar and resembles human compositions. So just a question for you guys, how have you used Gen AI in your life, right? Like where do you see yourself using some sort of Gen AI to help you? Just think about it. So moving on, we have the benefits of Gen AI. So we have rapid content generation, music composition, preliminary concept drafting, grant writing, and a whole lot more. This image on the left here, it's an image of um toy crabs. They basically had asked the AI to generate images or different types of toy crabs, and this is what the AI came out with. And it shows like the true extent and the creativity of AI, the different types of toys it was able to create just from the input of saying create a toy crab, right? And on the bottom right, for the neural rhapsody, this is a composition that the AI generated based on the input and music that it had been the data set that had been trained on. And so all of this is really cool. And then the mechanics of this is like it requires human created text and images to remix and generate this information, right? It relies on our content to make its own. So this leads to like work that is often unpaid and like not credited to the original creator, and also includes paywalled works like the New York Times. So moving on, what's a deepfake, right? Deepfake is a fraudulent piece of content, typically audio or video, that has been manipulated or created using artificial intelligence. This content replaces a real person's voice, image, or like even both, with similar looking and sounding artificial likeness. So in this image, you see on the left is a TikToker that basically goes around and generates AI deepfakes of him as Tom Cruise, and on the right is the image of him deepfaked as Tom Cruise, and like it looks like Tom Cruise. If I'd covered up the image on the left, you'd originally believe it is Tom Cruise, right? But no, it's just a deepfake. And so a prominent case right now with AI is like a heated debate in Hollywood, and it's has a lot of relations to the current AI ethics framework that we have. So, going to SAG-AFTRA, they have the right to digitally replicate a performer's voice or likeness to substantially manipulate a performance or to create a new digital performance is mandatory subject of bargaining. Basically, they're trying to make sure that their actors' rights are protected from the AI industry and the new content development that is being accelerated. So the current status of this case, right, and the current status of AI and IP and copyright. So we have celebrity deepfakes that are on the rise. An example would be like Tom Hanks ad, where they use his likeness in a dental ad and a toothpaste ad, where he was never there, he was never filmed or recorded. They just deepfaked his likeness and his voice onto someone else. And then there are also a lot of ethical and legal challenges now with a lot more increasingly realistic deepfakes, which now blurs reality, raising a lot of concerns, right? Like if you see an image online or a video online, you have to double check to make sure it's true and it's not doctored in some form. And then the industry strikes over AI are happening where SAG-AFTRA writers and the Guild of America, the Writers Guild of America, strikes focused on AI's implications and content generation. And then the new contract provision, they basically secured control for the actors over their digital replicas, making sure that the actors are paid and they need the actors' consent for that kind of use. And so this leads to the broader impact on Hollywood economics, where the strike influenced major studios' operations and emphasized the importance of ethical AI use in the industry. And then now moving on to our next topic, we have surveillance capitalism, right? So you hear this big word. So what is surveillance capitalism? Surveillance capitalism is a novel form of capitalist accumulation that commodifies personal data, primarily through digital platforms like Google and Amazon and like Meta and such what. And so the origin of this term, which is coined by Shoshana Zuboff, and she describes it as the process where human experiences are converted into data for financial gain, leading to the creation of a market based on predicting and selling behavioral trends, right? So some sort of algorithm that tracks some data and leads, and that tracking and what you learn from that helps the companies boost their profits and make more money. And so the key concept is that it aligns with traditional profit-driven capitalist mindset and introduces unique challenges now in data misuse and privacy breaches. So now we highlight the need for tailored regulations to address these emerging issues. So the insights from this TED Talk, which I highly recommend everyone sees, it's called You Are Your Data, right? So it goes over the ubiquity of data collection, where like every online interaction that you have can be revealed in data that is collected by the tech giants, right? And they have integrated tracking systems and apps and websites that continuously funnel user data back to these companies. And even like you would think private browsing or incognito, your data is not being tracked, but no, it still is. Like seemingly benign activities are still tracked and analyzed for data collection. And then so the impact of this on privacy and democracy is that extensive data collection infringes on individuals' privacy rights and creates detailed user profiles. And then the data is being used to manipulate consumer behavior, influencing purchasing decisions and personal preference. And the targeted ads are repurposed to influence political opinions and sway election outcomes. And then we also have the proliferation of misinformation online, which has been to one the highest ever these days, driven by personal data, poses a big threat to the democratic process, which we'll get into. And then more examples of data misuse, where the Brexit campaign was influenced by online misinformation. There was a lot of misinformation during COVID. There was a lot of misinformation during the Trump presidency, and the storming of the U.S. Capitol was linked to online conspiracy theories, showing the real-world impact of this type of online data misuse. So, going into this case of risks of data misuse to consumers, right? So this is a big case study, the Cambridge Analytica scandal, where 87 million Facebook users' data was collected without consent, and this data was used to build psychological profiles for targeted political campaigns, which impacted the democratic process heavily. And this scandal was exposed, and it showed the extent of personal data exploitation by tech companies, and it highlights the legal actions. It highlights that we need to take some sort of legal action and some sort of protection for us as users from this sort of data misuse, which led to, yeah. So yeah, just asking you, in what ways now do you think surveillance capitalism can benefit you, right? It wouldn't exist if it was all bad, so there has to be some benefits that we get from it. So the benefits that we get, like why this exists, why surveillance capitalism, this system is in place right now, is because we get enhanced user experience where these companies use our data to enhance our experience, such as like tailored videos and feeds, like say you're scrolling through TikTok, you're on YouTube, you're on like your Apple News or whatever news articles, websites, you get customized and tailored feeds to what you like and what you'd like to read. And then we also get free services, right? Like again, YouTube, Instagram, all these apps, and companies give you these services for free, but in return what they require is your data. And so this basically emphasizes the importance of consumer awareness about how their like data is used and the trade-offs in receiving these free services. And so moving on, now we have our data rights in the future. So what is the GDPR, right? You hear this a lot, you see it a lot in the news, GDPR this, GDPR that. What is the GDPR? The GDPR is an EU law mandating how organizations use personal data, and encompasses all forms of data processing and requires to adhere to integrity-friendly principles. And basically, like although this is an EU law, the US and American companies follow it as well, and or like follow it as closely as possible as well, because the products that like say Apple is selling here in America is the same product that they'd like to sell in Europe. So if these regulations are in place, the companies in America are still more likely to follow them. And yeah. So basically it's the legal basis for data usage, and it stipulates that personal data usage must be lawful and with defined purposes like say contract performance or fraud prevention. And so moving on, what are the GDPR's individuals' rights, right? The first is the right to be informed. Then we have the right of access and the right of rectification, the right to object to processing. We have rights in relation to automated decision making and profiling, the right to be forgotten, the right to data portability, and the right to restrict processing, right? So we have all these rights under the GDPR, and you can file for like say for example the right to be forgotten is where the right to be forgotten is also known as the right of erasure, and this right allows individuals to ask for their personal data to be deleted, like say if the personal data is no longer necessary, or if the individual withdraws consent of giving that data, or if the personal data was unlawfully processed, and a lot more, right? So the GDPR basically has all these rights set in place for the user to be protected. And so now moving on, where's the future of data privacy, right? Where do we want to see this going? Where is this going? So as of right now, with the introduction of the new privacy trend and people-centric data approaches and multi-standard compliance tools, we hope to see some more enlargement and regulatory requirements, wider impacts and adoption of the GDPR across all countries and across all companies, and more opportunities for these data privacy roles in companies and in government. to protect consumers and to protect us in the future of this world, and a merger of data security and data privacy. And then, so basically, a question for you to ask yourself and walk away with: what measures do you think are needed to maintain a balance between technological benefits and data privacy, right? What do you think is needed to still make this trade-off successful, where it can benefit us and the companies, and make it so that it's ethical? And so some takeaways for the future, also going back to the TED Talk. Steps toward protecting privacy, things that you can do is voting for politicians who prioritize data privacy and using browsers like DuckDuckGo to avoid tracking, and it also protects your privacy. Also, like, be cautious about app permissions and whatever you hit allow on whenever you're opening up a website or opening up an app. Just know whenever you're clicking a button what data is what like you're allowing them to access. Also, actively choose a way to step away from services that misuse your data, such as Facebook, which is like a powerful stance to show your privacy. And as of right now, the policies that we have in the works for data privacy, the US has an executive order on the safe, secure, and trustworthy development and use of artificial intelligence, which was passed this year in 2023. China has drafted three of them over the last 3 years. The first one in 2021 was the regulation on recommendation algorithms. Then, as technology advanced, we had in 2022 the rules for deep synthesis, and in 2023 the draft rules on Gen AI. And then the UN, they had the delegates call for ethical, responsible governance framework in 2023 as well. And that's a wrap. Go Dogs.